Hello, this is Michael Hexter. Welcome to Politics 2100 here on YouTube. So, this episode I'm calling GOP trying to make Americans' lives nastier, more brutish, and shorter. Dems not far behind. So, this is a kind of a summary view of, with a slight change or twist or however you like it, um, with regard to the shape of U.S. society overall. It's obviously a critical perspective that's trying to get behind or beyond the American exceptionalist claptrap and ideology that distorts Americans' own perception of their lives and therefore stops them from really engaging in a project of renewal and change of our society, because we are, according to American exceptionalism, we were already an exceptional and amazing place, and there's only a few changes that need to be made, if any at all. And you can say that the anti-CRT mania on the part of the right wing is about trying to prop up American exceptionalism in the minds of the right wing voters, and to assume that anybody who realistically criticizes the United States is a an un-American person who is not swept up in the American exceptionalist discourse. And so anyway, it appears to me that especially the events of the last several decades and the neoliberal era in general, having lasted a long time already in the United States, we have the kind of the connective tissue. I've written about this before. Connective tissue of society is being frayed by libertarian ideas or quasi-libertarian ideas via neoliberalism, and it's a view that's about, in a way, that there is I've called it hyper-capitalism in the past, and other people have as well. There's a sense of unlimited predation, unlimited preying upon, opportunism of one person upon the other is the way. In other words, a Lord of the Flies type struggle of each against all, and that where one arrives, or where one is somehow, what one possesses is a result of one's own personal merit, and also potentially divine plan, so to speak, providentialism, that's very strong in U.S. culture. So, but anyway, it leads to a society where people are preying on each other, or that the society is set up in a way that corporations can prey upon the weaknesses of Americans and others in other countries to their maximum benefit. And the government plays along with this and tries to facilitate this as if it were the optimal economic system, the optimal social system. And so this, but from the GOP's view of this, it is the most cartoonish or most brutal aspects of this system celebrated as being wonderful, as being great, and also as being pleasurable to enjoy the misery of others, to try to inflict misery in other people, to watch leaders be, as I've described in other episodes, moral sadists, and that being the substance of politics, of attempting to own various groups, including own the quote unquote the libs, the people who supposedly are about tender-hearted regard for other people and empathy with other people, so forth and so on. That is banished in favor of this hard, I've called it the cult of the deadly phallus at some points. But anyway, here I'm using the concept of predation and of also the idea from Hobbes that life before society or the state of nature is where lives were poor, isolated, nasty, brutish, and short, was his full list of what he considered the state of nature to be. It wasn't at a time, it's an opposite view to that of Rousseau, who thought of the state of nature as being a paradisical time, or relatively speaking, and that people were inherently noble and so forth and so on, and that no Hobbes assumed the worst about people, and so also worse about society, and he thought that there could be a form of damage control or mitigation, or it would be the best you could do, and which government attempts to provide through the Leviathan, through the sovereign government being attempting to sand off the hard edges of this nasty, brutish, and short life. But we have in the GOP a party that's saying, no, I'm going to make your life more brutish and short. They don't say this, and that's where this is a political intervention that the Democrats could be using, even though, they could bring up Hobbes and they could say, famous philosopher Hobbes said blah, blah, blah. It seems like the GOP is trying to intentionally make society, not just, he was just saying that was just the nature of human lives, but no, that the GOP is actually trying to structure society so it is nastier, more brutish, and lives are shorter. And so the Dems could portray themselves as being the society that wants to make our lives longer, less brutish, and less nasty, and through also sincere policy initiatives. And this is where they fall down. They promise and then they don't deliver. So when I say Dems not far behind, I'm saying they actually are complicit in this same society. And it seems to me as though people are not sincerely convinced, people who consider themselves to be above this nastiness and brutishness and short-livedness, that they are not actually fully convinced of the alternative. They're not fully convinced of their vision. They're not, in order to fight for it. And some of it is a function of that the leaders are really working for the same people who are the beneficiaries of the society based on maximum predation, maximum opportunism, maximum private exploitation of other people. In other words, the class, the ruling class, or the capitalist class, in its various forms, in its various representatives, making the majority of the people's lives nastier and brutish and shorter for the sake of short-term profit. And and we see this in, obviously, their celebration of arms, of unfettered access to arms, to guns. They don't have and you could say, well, it's because they are getting money from the NRA. But the NRA is one of these industries that is part of this overall social contract, you could say, or lack of thereof, where we're supposed to be allowing maximal room for play for the companies to exploit bottlenecks and dependencies that people have in order for them to maximize their profits, and that's considered to be the role of government is to sort of referee that. It depends on which side you're looking at, whether the Dems are supposed to sort of sand off some of the rough edges of that, and the Republicans are trying to increase that dynamic in our society, the dynamic of predation, of exploitation, of monopolization. So this is also, to create these bottlenecks, you are dealing with monopolies or oligopolies often. So those companies can furthermore exploit their market positions and economic positions overall more if the government is working with them to do that. And so So there needs to be this alternative vision that people need to be convinced of, and I think AOC does a good job of this. Um, talking about a dignified human dignity and creating a dignified society where human dignity is promoted, where human flourishing is promoted, where human freedom is promoted, and and that society is based on really on a different um, premise, a different sense of how social cohesion is is created and how social functioning is created, and um, and that is extremely weakened right now. It's not the Democratic leadership is not at all convinced of that vision at all. They make references to a better society. They make, but it's very it's maddeningly thin gruel what someone like Joe Biden offers. For instance, the $10,000 loan forgiveness. It's kind of rubbing it. It's like, well, I'm doing this perfunctory thing where I'm trying to um, uh, basically sand down the rough edges very, very slightly of a society based on preying on people's need to get an education and preying on their and creating a debt trap for them as they try to improve their either their economic livelihood or their intellectual understanding and their contributions to society based on their creativity, however that is facilitated in their education. So um, the anyway, so this vision is something that I think the Democratic Party should, in some form. They don't have to use Hobbes's words, but they can show themselves overall to be a better party. They would have to become convinced, though, of that they cannot be shy and ashamed of representing this. They need to be proud of representing a society based on human dignity, on social cooperation to a greater degree than our current society does, which is more about hierarchy and competition so anyway, I think, and someone listening to this might think, well, this is very idealistic, quote unquote. Well, no, it's just simply the society that the GOP is trying to create assumes already that there are cooperators and supports and public goods that have been already created, which then they can prey upon. So it's an extremely short-sighted perspective on how a society works, because governments and workers and also other companies, need to create the material basis for then maybe predators coming in and trying to get a quick, advantage of one thing or another. But our society is so much weighted to the passive, somewhat passive, but also or predatory passive approach to the production of goods and services, and public goods in particular, and it's simply assumed to be whatever the field of grain that the locusts then descend upon. The locust didn't plant the field; the locust came and they ate it. Okay, so that short-sightedness that basically will lead society off a cliff, and that the creative aspect of government policy and cooperation and government industrial policy and government whole different and climate policy and so forth and so on is about creating positive goods, which are not recognized by this dominant paradigm that naturalizes and hides the predatory aspects of capitalism and the need for the greater fool, so to speak, in the capitalist model. And so, including our own future being the greatest fool, in other words, that we are left holding the bag. So I know this is maybe a little bit on the abstract side, but I'm trying to generate ideas for people on the left and liberals and whatever, especially trying to light some fire under this impotent democratic leadership to save our democracy if it can, or to at least delay the total collapse of our democracy in the next 3 years, okay, or 2 years. So anyway, and also the collapse of our social system, a whole bunch of different other things that could happen, as well as maybe even the climate will see some major climate deteriorations that may or may not buttress that perspective. But anyway, so please share your thoughts in the comments below. Please like the video if you did like it, and please subscribe to Politics 2100 if you're enjoying the content on this channel. Talk to you soon.